back to the Wellness Effect. This week, we're discussing substance abuse. Remember to hit the subscribe button. With me in studio is Giles Fourie from White River Manor. Welcome, Giles.
Thank you.
So, Giles, how did you get into this space, particularly substance abuse recovery?
Well, I'm in recovery myself, so nearly 19 years on a journey.
Wow, incredible.
I spent from the age of 17 to the age of 30 in the corporate world, from the age of 19 to 30 in full-blown addiction. And by the time I was 30 years old, I was burnt out. And to be honest, I was nearly dead.
Wow.
I reached out for help. And since I got my own freedom from addiction, I never wanted to go back into the corporate world, and decided that, helping other people gain the freedom that I had gained was really what I wanted to do with my life.
Maybe could you elaborate to us, what are the catalysts to an addiction?
Well, I think there's many facets to addiction. Every person is different. But I think in essence, the catalyst to addiction are people that are trying to escape their current circumstances. So whether it be a lack of self-worth, a feeling of depression, anxiety, there's a lot of reasons why people want to escape. But I think the fundamental is someone that is really trying to get rid of the way that they feel. So they're using a substance or a process, addiction or whatever it might be, as a momentary relief from the way that they feel. So, every single person and every single person's experiences in life are different. But it's how they perceive those experiences and what has happened to them in life that either makes them want to escape the way that they feel, or deal with the problems that they have. So it's almost like a fight or flight response, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely. You've mentioned quite a bit around these catalysts maybe being self-worth, wanting to escape. Let's say you recognize someone who's on that journey towards substance abuse. How do you approach them to state almost, how do you help them?
Well, I think the first thing and the most important thing for me is that you should always try and seek professional help.
Okay.
I think often what I've seen in the last 19 years in the industry is when family members try to step in, they sort of run into it head first and sometimes push the person further away from wanting treatment.
Absolutely.
So finding a professional, a registered therapist, a social worker, or using the support structures that exist, in the area would be the first port of call. I think gaining a deeper understanding from those people about addiction and about the reasons why the person might be in addiction would be the most important first steps to getting a person into successful treatment.
I want to pause on that. In relation to the previous question, you mentioned that the catalysts are self-worth, almost wanting to escape. How do you as an individual recognize that maybe there's some things you haven't dealt with and that you need help? Like, what are the small triggers that you can notice in yourself? Like, oh, maybe I'm, putting it to the side, but actually I need help.
Yeah, I think a lot of people deal with anxiety without even recognizing it. A lot of people drink alcohol, for example, just to be socially accepted so that they can take the edge off.
Correct.
And I think that those are the sort of precursors and the sort of markers that someone needs to look at is, am I drinking to try and feel better? Am I drinking to be accepted? Am I drinking because I can't handle, my circumstances right now? So I think that those are the sort of things that people need to try and look inwards and try to identify in order to be able to start their own process.
It's important for our viewers to note that there's small markers that you can identify. But maybe let's talk about, what is recovery?
Well, again, it's a very broad statement, recovery, But I think that recovery, first of all, is about connection. Because if there's one thing that addiction is, it's about disconnecting from oneself. It's about trying to escape the way that you feel. So recovery is about reconnecting with who you are and trying to go on this journey, because it is a journey, there is no destination, to find out who you really are. It's a difficult journey, one of introspection where you have to look inwards and acknowledge your weaknesses and acknowledge your shortcomings is never easy. But I think those are the sort of beginning steps of someone that goes through a process of recovery that needs to identify within themselves, what is it that needs to change? And whether someone is going on a spiritual journey in recovery or not, it's still about connection with oneself. If you go on a spiritual journey of recovery, it's connecting with your higher power. But again, that will still bring you back to a closer connection with self. And it's being able to live with yourself and accept yourself. I think those are the big criteria that people need to work towards. Because a lot of people don't accept who they are and don't accept the weaknesses that they've got, and they try to mask and hide those things. So I think a part of recovery is really, being open, being honest, being vulnerable, and allowing, your weaknesses to be shown. But in doing so, you allow people in to help you, through your process.
That's really powerful. I love that you mentioned is really about connecting either to a higher power, to oneself. What was that for you in your recovery journey?
Well, it was connecting to a higher power. For me, I think my relationship with God is what has restored my self-worth. It has given me my identity. And, my process of going through dealing with my childhood traumas and the things that had brought me to addiction, I think those were only really possible with God in my life.
And what determines if someone will be successful in recovery or if they won't be, or if they'll be unsuccessful in the recovery process?
So I think, in my opinion, that someone that is going to go on a successful recovery journey is someone who's not willing to compromise. I see that, people that are willing to compromise in their process and compromise in the places that they go to and compromise with the friends that they have often are the people that, will relapse and go back into addiction. People that are prepared to take a step right back out of the life that they've been living and to really reassess their lives and what is important and to stick to that. I think that's one element, but I think anyone who's prepared to continue on their process of recovery. So it's not just about, someone that might come to White River Manor is there for a month or 2 months or whatever it might be, but it's someone who's prepared to get into a program for the rest of their recovery and the rest of their journey that will generally be successful, whether that be in NA, AA, the 12-step meetings, or someone who finds a therapist, that is able to help them walk the rest of their recovery process out.
I like how you started this conversation saying that you've been on a 19-year journey of recovery. Do you view recovery as this lifelong process rather than it being, a short 12-week process in a program?
I think I do believe that I've been set free from addiction, but that doesn't mean that I'm not in recovery. It doesn't mean that I am able to compromise on, the places that I go to and the friends that I have. I do believe it's a journey. I don't believe that, someone that has been recovered for 30 years is able to take, a sip of alcohol, because, that would put them in a compromising position. Correct. Even though they've been out of it for so long. Yeah. So it's a decision that you have to make every single day, but I do believe that you can be set free from it.
Amazing. You mentioned White River Manor in a discussion that we're having. What forms of recovery do you support those who are going through some level of addiction?
Well, at White River Manor, we try to work with the person. So we don't have a set structure and we don't try to wrap a program around somebody. We try to get to know who the person is and build a program that suits them. So some people like the NA process or the AA process or the 12-step process and other people don't. So for us, it's really about trying to get to know the person, identify, what they need to work on, what their recovery goals are, and build a program around them and a support structure around them, and then walk them through their process.
You mentioned community. How important is community on a recovery journey?
Community is essential, in my opinion. I think that that's one of the reasons why the 12-step model and the NA is so successful, because you surround yourself with like-minded people, people that want recovery, that are fighting every single day. And I think it's also an opportunity to share your burdens with other people, even though they might not be able to help. I think being able to talk about it in a community of people that are supportive is essential.
Yeah, I think community where there isn't any judgment, it's almost individuals who are on the similar path towards recovery.
Exactly. I think that's a key as well that you touched on there, is judgment and the stigma that there is
Yes.
around, addiction. And I think that that's something that, we still need to work hard on trying to oppose, that generally people don't get into addiction because they want to be there. They don't end up on the streets or wherever it is because that's what they like. It's because the place that they're in within themselves is so bad that they would rather run from that, than be there. So yeah.
And maybe as we close the conversation, two questions I'd love to pose to you is the first one is for someone who's watching this and they have someone who they know is struggling with addiction, what piece of advice would you give them? The second being an individual who's watching this and realizes some of the points you've mentioned is actually struggling with an addiction that they're maybe not aware of, but this conversation has maybe enlightened them. What advice would you give them?
So I think for any family member that's identified, whether it's their child or their spouse that needs help, I think, like I said, it's to approach a professional that can really help them. Because I think that those interventions are critical, and sometimes you only have one bite at the apple to really get the buy-in from the person that's in addiction, that needs the help. And I think a trained professional is the best person to facilitate that. Um, the other question about someone who's seeing this that really needs help, I think that there's a lot of avenues that someone can take in order to seek help. There's a lot of facilities that are out there. There's a lot of rehabs that are inpatient, outpatient. But I think the first step would be to contact someone that they trust, and share their story with that person and allow them to guide them to the best possible place for their own therapy.
I know I said last question, but I have another one. We're talking about wellness specifically for organizational leaders who are leading businesses or leading large enterprises. What do business leaders do when they notice in their organization there are people who struggle with addictions? What level of support can they provide as organizations?
Well, I think the first intervention, I think, would be to have the HR department reach out to the individual. I think that there's a lot of companies that have got great structures within themselves.
Sure.
But I think that corporate companies need to more often seek the help of professionals from outside to come in to facilitate, educational talks. And I think that also helps to destigmatize it and allow the employees to come forward and acknowledge the issues that they've got. So I think, the first step of the companies really is to show the support to their staff, because I think at the end of the day, if they can get their staff helped, they're going to have more productive staff, and it's going to have a better return for them in the company. So we deal with a lot of corporate companies that do that and that have got fantastic, support structures within them. But I think in South Africa, we need a lot more of that.
I like that. It's to bring professional services or professionals to come into the organization to help facilitate those conversations. Because I think at times, as organizations, we want to try and resolve these, but we do need to seek professional advice.
Yeah, again, I think that it's important that someone who's trained in the field is the person that is facilitating a conversation like that, because they're able to be there in a non-judgmental manner, in a very supportive manner, but in an educated manner as well, to try and draw the person out of the issues that they've got and to get them the help they need.
So, Giles, you mentioned community being essential in this recovery journey. How do people stay connected in the community as they progress in their recovery journey?
Well, I think, if you have a look at the 12-step model, step 12 is giving back. So I think that that's an important part about staying within the community is, you work your own process to a point where you have dealt with the majority of the things that you need to within your own recovery. And then you have the opportunity to give back to others. And I think that helps the cycle continue. So you have people coming in that are desperate, that are lost, that are confused. And, you have people that have been through the same process that are there to really support them, and to hold them and to take them through the most difficult times. And I think once that person has gone through that process, they want to reciprocate, similar to, my own story.
Yeah. So as they receive help, it's to almost reciprocate that help that they've received with others.
To give back what you've been given, I think is probably one of the most gratifying experiences, one can have.
Giles, thank you so much for explaining the recovery process, but also sharing your own journey. It's been enlightening to me, and I know it will be for our audience.
It's a pleasure. It's been great being here and, to have the opportunity to share and to hopefully reach people out there that need help.
Amazing. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss out. I'll see you next time on The Wellness Effect. BankMed, the medical scheme of choice for the financial services industry. The Wellness Effect is proudly brought to you by BankMed, yours in good health.